Hi, everyone, and welcome. This is Krishna Priya, and this is the Human Colony Hucolo Webinar. It is Saturday, the 19th of August, 2023, and we have with us our very special guests, Wendy Napolitano, and then we have Susan Mulharen. Aha, I said it right.
Mulharen.
Okay, well then, we tried to get her name right. Susan Mulharen.
Mulharen, yeah, the A is silent at the end.
Okay, well, Susan Mulharen with her silent A, and discussing their very wonderful trip that they just had to Ireland and Scotland. They went to a lot of sacred sites and had a lot of beautiful experiences, and we'll get into all of that in just a moment. First, we will start with an announcement. I have to share my screen because our dear friend Angie is off teaching a class today, but she left us a video message. So this is us being high tech here at Hucolo. One second, I'm going to share the screen. And I hope that I can, yes, push. Can everyone see it?
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. There we go.
Hi, everyone. Angie Speed here. We have our next gathering scheduled. It is Thursday, August 8th through Sunday, August 12th. Cost is $6.95. And it is a gathering for oneness. There will be some classes, but that hasn't, but the roundness of it is oneness, gathering, starseed family. If you're interested, please send an email to classes@hucolo.org. It is $6.95 a person. I also wanted to announce that Friday, August 25th of this year, next Friday, I will be doing an online galactic energy healing class. It will be 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you're interested in taking the galactic energy healing class, student level, I will be doing that on Friday, August 25th, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you're interested in either of these, please email classes@hucolo.org. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, perfect. Did you see when I moved another screen in front of it, did it cover or did it just stay the video the whole time?
I just saw the video.
I just saw the video too.
I was trying to pull up the YouTube thing and then I realized that I had just moved the screen over the top of the thing. That's why I was like, oh, did you hear me go, oh, no? Okay, good.
It may have come across.
All right, well, well, it was only a second anyway, but it was me trying to multitask and I was trying to get to the Hucolo chat, so I wanted to do that. Okay. So let's who's going to do a blessing? I think it should be Wendy and Susan. And if there's anyone else that wants to do a blessing, you can just say yes in the chat. That would be great. Yes, no, maybe so. All right, so we'll start with Susan and then we'll go to Wendy. And if you have an interpretation, go ahead and do it.
All right, we'll do. Tia sia kia kotoya e sia e sukotoya hi e sia kataya kotoa he sia kotoya sia te kahaita ya kotoya ya he sia kotoya ya sia tukotoya. Welcome all you beautiful souls. Sia te aki he sia hutu to kia tia kotoa hi that have come to join in our energies. He sukotaya hi here sikotia here siki here so here tia to ko tia here siki of these dear ones magical travels here kia te ayokuto here sekia te ye te kitu kota ya tia te kia here ya sukota ya here with us wonderful nature beings sikaya tia here sia ye to ko the ancient ones here to ko tia he to ko here sia ya kia to ko ya here sikitia yoto here ho sikia to ko hopefully you enjoyed the ride.
That was
fun.
All right, let's see who wants to come through here. Achakaniuro to hira pahira ka ututuira naraka ichuturiri minira to tukuru to hiha narako ishidanana ira to na kana hi to na ha pahui kahi tata to new mimi apa to homa era tapa neuro niara new. We encourage you today to listen to the guidance systems that come in with messages to your own heart, to your own self. As these souls and beings decided to make their journey together, they were listening to their own higher selves, to their own wisdom from their guides. And as they were getting these messages of what needed to be cleared, what needed to be healed, what needed to be accomplished, per se, for the mission of healing and bringing the light and clearing energies, and yet going through their own transformations, moving along to the next level, shall we say. We ask each of you to find what you are being called to, listen to your hearts, follow your own team's guidance for your journeys, and enjoy your ride. Playing on the same thematics. Many blessings to you. We are the shining ones, and we send you our love.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm just going to keep you guys on the screen. So why don't we just talk about, or why don't I give it to you and you talk about your trip, like the motivation for the trip, and then the trip itself, what you learned, what you gleaned, and what you would like to maybe expand on further. I hear there's a leprechaun that may be able to be channeled.
Yes.
maybe some other fun earth spirits, but I will leave it to you and let you, and if I have a question, I'll jump in, but I just want to let you guys discuss how this went and when it all started.
So it all started out where myself, Susan, and I, oh my God, me, myself, and I, Susan, myself, and Joan were all like getting these messages of going to Ireland. And so we started talking about, yeah, you know what, I have been wanting to go, and we decided to go ahead and put our trip together. So during the discussion, my daughter kind of brought up, she's like, well, you're right there next to Scotland. Why wouldn't you just go to Scotland too? So that's how it all kind of came together, where we decided what we wanted to go, what we were going to do. They kept telling us to go to Northern Ireland, even though we desired to go like down to Southern Ireland, because, you know, there's a lot of nice stuff there too. But so we ended up making the trip. We went this past June. We were there from the 7th to the 17th. And there were, it was a lot of fun things and exciting things that happened along the way. Susan, you want to tell about your first experience with those numbers? 7 to 17.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, you know, this entire year leading up to the trip and even after the trip, I've been seeing the number sevens and ones, you know, 711, 717, like every day. And I know 7 is like I think a sacred Metatron number, and I've got a fractal of Metatron, so I don't know if that has any connection, but ones as well are, of course, as most know, like 111 and is sacred number. So that was interesting. And then leading up to the trip, I know Wendy and I were having a lot of like lower back pain, sciatica pain, like kind of like the back of the sacral chakra, root chakra, and I think it was kind of preparing us or making us aware of what we need to clear, I think, on our trip, because we went through some clearings there. Yeah, so we were getting different sensations and things leading up to this trip. And a couple years ago, like Wendy mentioned, with, you know, that we're all getting inner guidance about like going to Ireland, I had a dream of Wendy and I flying in a helicopter over some green rolling hills, and there was a cliff in the side of one of the hills. There was a cliff that had some like Egyptian carvings, including like a ram-headed god and maybe some Celtic gods or something. And on top of that, there was like a 5-star conference center, and we arrived on the top of the hill and got out, and we were all jumping around excited, and like we were the guests of honor and things like that. And we were told, like, this is kind of what you can have is traveling around the world, like bringing our energies, doing land clearing, helping the nature beings. And on top of that, there was like a
I'm so sorry.
Feedback.
YouTube, please continue.
Okay. Yeah, so we all kind of got our own individual visions and shared them as far as going to Ireland, and then and then Wendy brought in Scotland, which I've always wanted to go there, so it was like perfect synchronicities all along the way. And then while we were there, both Wendy and I, we have some talent with influencing the weather. We've kind of played around in influencing the weather and have had some success with that. And so we both, set our intentions to have beautiful weather while we were there. And I know for Ireland, for the 6 days that we were supposed to be there, it was supposed to rain every day except for like one day. And instead we had like beautiful sunshine in the high 70s, beautiful summer weather, blue sky, green grass. It was like magical, beautiful. And we were later told in our channeling practice after we got back that we were with the elementals, we were with the nature beings, and that we were kind of in their dimension this whole trip, which it felt like that. And we did have what we'd call some interesting magical types of experiences, which we'll share along the way here. So, but it was an amazing trip.
So,
we arrived where first? You went to Ireland or Scotland first?
Edinburgh. We started out in Edinburgh, and our first outing was Edinburgh Castle. And it's very interesting. We ended up going to the castle. They had us kind of hiking in circles. So there was a little bit of elemental play right from the get-go. and then while we were at Edinburgh Castle, we were doing clearing there. Well, I mean, it was pretty exhausting just because of, jet lag just to begin with. But Susan and Bob decided to go sit down, and they were literally like sitting on like a well. And so they were like, it was kind of like graded over, but it was an area they could sit, and they were like sitting on this well at the castle. And Joan and I decided to go and walk through. They had, the crown jewels there, and they were like off in this other building. And so we ended up like taking this walk through the building and going into where they had the crown jewels, and then where she had given birth to her son. And I can't think of the king's name, but anyway, while we were there, she had all of this embroidery that she had done, and we were like looking at all the different like embroidery. They had it all on display, and what some, I guess, students or whatever, they took her original embroidery and then replicated it. So it's not her actual work, but it's replicated to like be exact. So I made a connection there. And then when I got back home, I started getting channeled messages from Mary, Queen of Scots, because I was like, who am I talking to? And it's like, this is Mary. And I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of Marys in the world. Mary who? Identify yourself. And it was Mary, Queen of Scots. And I was like, wait, what? How did I like connect with you there? But I was really impressed with learning about her during that trip.
Oh, that's cool. So you connected to her, and
yeah,
what did she have to say?
She just wanted the awareness that she was connecting to me and was guiding me in the intricacies of any projects that I have. So yeah, so that was kind of an exciting experience to have.
Well, we went through it. There was a chapel there at the castle, and wasn't that Mary, Queen of Scots chapel?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, so maybe that's part of the connection there.
Can you write it down for me?
Yeah.
No.
I can't see it. Oh, yeah, New Grange. So anyway, so then the plan was, after going to the castle, we ended up, just kind of eating locally. But that evening, Bob was like, I'm done. And then we decided to, just kind of like walk down the streets. So there were a couple of like pubs that were there. And while we were going down, the first one that we came to was like outside. It was all lit up and like, hanging lights, like you would think like a fairy.
Like a bat. It was kind of like a backyard patio kind of look. Yeah.
What was that called?
Was that?
Thanks. And it was called Three Sisters.
And it was, Joe and Wendy and I. and they had dancing to like 80s, 90s American music from the 80s and 90s that we hadn't heard in years. So we had fun dancing, and there was another place that had live music that we danced a little at too on that street. But yeah, we had a lot of fun.
But we had a lot of fun, and then we ended up coming back. And so then the next day we had scheduled a day trip on a bus, and we went all the way up to Inverness. So it was really pretty much traveling from Edinburgh up to Northern Ireland, up into the Highlands. And once we got there, we ended up taking a boat ride over through Loch Ness, and then we ended up over at the castle, and we ended up doing some like donations and sacred healing. And I mean, it's almost like every time we stopped somewhere, we were just joining our energy together. Also, prior to going to the trip, we were guided to kind of do the sigil. So we were carrying this along with us too. You can see that. And we all put our energy into it to create this healing emblem that we could use. And it's got different representations, you know, the strawberry moon, because we were there during, you know, the season of the strawberry moon in June. The harps being there for, you know, representative of Ireland. The fires that were there were the sacred heart fires. The hearts in the pyramids, you know, connecting into the energy of the land. Then we also had the symbols of the sun being there, so getting that energy of the sun and the healing that was there, so, you know, tying into our own universe. And then sacred geometry, having the symbol of the circle and the infinity symbol within that circle, doing that. Now, once I'll tell a story that kind of ties into that once we get to the Rosalind Chapel. But after we were in Edinburgh, and we had gone up to our Inverness trip, we were like seeing cows everywhere and sheep, and it was like, oh, more animals. So there were like a lot of animals that I felt like they were just like their energy was there. I mean, that's probably just how it was, but the hills were green, you know, all the time. And it was really lovely to see.
Yeah, an area called Glencoe, of like what you normally think of the Scottish Highlands, and you know, in some of the shows you may have seen. And we went to a Scottish cow farm where I think they used their fur to make like kind of like cashmere blankets and things of that nature. But we got to feed the cows, which was fun. And then on the way to going to Loch Ness, we stopped in a small village called Pittolarchy, but they had a little ice cream shop that had whiskey ice cream. But then Wendy found out it wasn't really whiskey. It was like whiskey extract, but it was delicious. It was amazing. But yeah, and then our boat ride on Loch Ness and
ice cream. I thought you were going to tell me.
What was that?
I thought you were going to say she had a little too much whiskey ice cream.
Oh. No, but on the boat ride over, they did have whiskey hot chocolate. And so I had to try that whiskey hot chocolate, and that was delicious. I would recommend anybody taking that boat ride to enjoy a small cup of hot chocolate with or without the whiskey.
Was it whiskey? Was it Jura whiskey? Because that's where my family is from, the island of Jura off of Scotland. I don't know if you all made it over there.
Yeah, no.
I don't think so.
Okay. No, but yeah, it certainly could have been local, and we just didn't know, because I know I wasn't saying, oh, what's the name brand of that, because I'm really not a whiskey drinker. So it's a little challenging. But after we got there, we decided to, like, we had, you know, some apples and some stones. And so Joan and I were like, we're taking our shoes off and going in the water. But the rocks were like really rocky. We both brought water shoes, but we didn't bring them that day. So we were just like, ow, 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 in the water, and was just, you know, connecting in with the energy and doing some healing and some blessings there. And then again, the rest of the day was just a gorgeous day. And then we took the bus trip back, and we ended up stopping on the way back on the bus, and like there was this glen, and it was just gorgeous. And that was a vision that I had in one of my dreams, where it was like these mountains, but they kind of looked foggy, like almost like it was like cloudy the way it was. And I was like sitting in there on the hill and just like looking across at the other hill. But then when we got there, I mean, it was just like, oh, we've got like, it's a 10-minute stop, get some great photos, and then hop back on the bus. So I think it was really just like a stop for the driver, honestly. And it was just a pretty location. So, but we did get some nice photos there.
Like a scenic overlook spot.
Wendy, you're freezing out a little.
Yeah. So, and then
Wendy, you're lagging a lot.
Freezing?
You're freezing.
Yeah, your internet's having some problems. Yeah.
So why don't you kind of pick it up from there?
Okay.
Give Wendy a break just for a second.
Yeah. So yeah, we toured Urquhart Castle, then got back on the bus, and then we did drive by a stone circle that was off to the side in like a small park, but we didn't stop there. I think the parking lot there was too small for a bus, like just like a city park. But then yeah, we went through this Glencoe. It's kind of like a national park area for them, and with the big green rolling hills and stone, like rocky outcroppings, kind of like the dream I had. But yeah, we stopped at some like kind of scenic overlooks so we could take pictures and everything, and on the way back. So yeah, we got back from that day. That was our second day in Scotland. And then our third day, we went to Rosalind Chapel, and we met up with a couple of our friends from the UK, Philip Barrow and Sophie Angels. Maybe some people might know them from Facebook. But yeah, so they met us there.
Also Jerry McNeil.
Yeah, Jerry McNeil, who Wendy knows, like she met him in the US at a Crystal Skulls conference about 5 years ago. Yeah.
Back in 2019, yeah.
Yeah. And so he lives like an hour outside of Edinburgh. And I think the Scottish pronounce it Edinburgh instead of Edinburgh. I don't know. But yeah, so we all met at Rosalind Chapel, and we did some kind of ceremonies outside, did some light language, looked at some of the things around. And I know Phil, Wendy, and I, but mainly I think Phil and Wendy, did some clearing work on the outside of the chapel. There were, I think, some maybe like Freemason symbols or some symbols on the outside that had some energy associated with it. So I think I did some healing intentions, but they kind of did an in-depth healing. So I don't know if you want to talk about that, Wendy.
Yeah. So basically what happened is we were noticing that there were these symbols, and there were several different locations within Rosalind Chapel on the outside of the brick. And so I was saying to Phil, because we had our flutes and stuff, and so we were playing music and we were grounding and just connecting in with the earth. But I said the energy is like really crazy here. I said, I've got this weird vibration coming off, and he's like, yeah. He goes, let's go do some clearing. And he goes, come here, come look at this symbol. And so I went over, and you could see it was like kind of on the brick, and it was part of like the wall that was connected to the chapel, and just the way like how it was built out. And so he put his hand there, and he goes, oh wow. He goes, where do you feel this? And so then I ended up putting my hand there, and I'm like, I think we need to do some clearing here. So then we sat there and we like put our intention and our energies into, kind of clearing the energy back from, when distant lands and, wars were happening, and control over, who was doing what was going on, without going into history that I don't know. But so while we were sitting there clearing, I was like, I could feel like the vibrations happening in my hand. It's almost like it was like a little earthquake inside the actual wall. And so he started just watching, wars with, with people, losing their lives and that sort of thing. He's like, yeah, he goes, we need to clear all of this. So then we ended up doing that work, and then you could feel the energy vibration change from like this heavy, dense energy to like a much softer, more peaceful energy. And so then we ended up doing some releasing of spirits, and then we ended up going inside the chapel, and somebody was having a conversation. I think they were probably talking about the grounds and something, but I felt like we just weren't in that at all. We literally just walked right past them, down through the chapel and down into the basement. And once we got into the basement, we were just kind of looking around. It was pretty much open. And then we decided to, stand in a circle and hold hands and do some clearing work.
Right.
And
it was the crypt. Krishna Priya, attendees can't see Wendy and I because I think you have your photo pinned.
I have my photo pinned?
Yeah, the meeting host photo.
I'm so sorry.
And so they haven't been able to see our video this whole time.
No, that's not true, because I was actually looking at you on YouTube.
Oh, did you? Oh, you were able to see this. Okay. No,
Yeah.
there was just some posts in the chat, and then
then that person has which post in which chat? The YouTube?
in the Zoom chat.
Oh, in the Zoom chat, that person is in control of their own view. I'm not in control of your view in the Zoom chat. So that means the Zoom person has to choose gallery or
Or speaker view.
Yeah, and so they probably have the wrong thing zoomed, but I'm not in control of a person's view in their own.
Yeah.
Zoom.
Okay. All right.
That's funny.
On YouTube,
Well, we were talking about because we're here and we're going to be talking about leprechauns, that leprechaun energy is definitely trickster energy and they do like to play. So there's very possibly the high likelihood that leprechauns and elementals are playing with us today and whoever might be participating. So use caution.
Well, for whoever's there, go to your upper right corner of your Zoom and you'll see the thing that says view. Click it and then you can choose the view you have. But I can't control that. I only control the view that's on YouTube. So yeah. So why don't we talk about?
So we ended up.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say we ended up going to Ireland rather, and we flew into Dublin, and then that's where we started journeying north. And there was definitely a lot more stuff going on there.
Well, do you want to finish talking about Rosslyn Chapel or what we experienced?
Yeah.
Down in the crypt, in the basement area.
Down in the crypt, we decided to hold hands, and those of us that did light language did light language. Then we were doing prayers and clearing, and we were getting different messages. But I kept feeling the energy like we were getting pulled apart. But I also was feeling energy like we were expanding. So it was kind of a weird juxtaposition to one another. And so then after we were done, I don't know, how long do you think?
And I was getting like the stabbing energy like 13, 14, 15 times in my right foot. Like the arch of my right foot was getting the stabbing, painful stabbing while we were holding hands and stuff, which, And
even on the grounds afterwards, you're like, I keep getting this stabbing in my foot. So so she was getting clearing from that. And anyway, when we broke up from our group, we ended up going upstairs and we were sitting outside and just like kind of communing.
Grounding.
And
releasing.
Grounding and sharing each other's company, just literally sitting on the ground in a little circle, having a chit chat, doing some healing on one another. And then Phil goes, look at my hand. He goes, it's kind of like gouged up. So he had like this big, he goes, I didn't come here with a scratch. So he showed me his hand and he had like a little scratch. And then he turned and he had like claw marks on his wrist. There were like four claws across his wrist. But because of the work that he does, he said that he's often targeted anyway, right? So as a warrior in the astrals. So
well, those claw marks usually they say are, spirits that are like, they'll say demonic. I don't know if demonic.
Yeah. Well, he fights those in astral.
Yeah, that's his work is Archangel Raziel. So
he has a fractal of Raphael and Merlin.
Isn't it interesting? It happens in a chapel that he's getting attacked by a demon.
Right. Well, that's why we knew. Yeah. Right. I mean,
that's hallowed ground too.
Right. Well, our experience is that they come to find us. So when
they see our light,
they see our light and they're attracted to it. And especially when we're together, because then when we're doing work, we end up being, what's the difference of one flashlight versus 3 flashlights together and the beams that are sent out, right? And I guess that's how we keep being told that that's how they see us from astral is with
there's like 5 or 6 of us,
So so we were making a pretty bright light, I guess, that day. But anyway, we ended up going out to lunch and Jerry ended up having these crystals that he was selling, and we were all looking at them, and then
Crystal
I kind of
skulls.
stepped away. Yeah, crystal skulls, and I kind of stepped away, and we were visiting about that, and I was having a conversation, and then I turn, and all of a sudden I see this like golden yellow, like I don't know if it's quartz or not,
citrine,
and I see
yeah.
it, and I go like this, I go. And I like grab it real quick, and I picked it up, and I was like, why? Like, and then my brain went, why did I do that? And then I looked at it, and I went, oh, it's Laura. She told me her name is Laura. And then I looked, and I realized that Joan literally was having a conversation with Jerry about like buying this crystal from him. And I went, oh, she's not mine. And I set it down. And then when she got home, she got that it's Lady Loch Ness. And then I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, we were asking about, Lady Loch Ness. And then it came out during Jim's channeling that it was Lady Laura Loch Ness. So I was like, aha. So that was kind of a fun thing to experience. Then we ended up flying into Dublin the following day. And Bob made this road trip plan for us. So he, unbeknownst to him, I mean, he knew, but he had to be prepared for it. So he had to drive on the opposite side of the car. We decided to rent a car. And so he ended up driving wrong side of the road, wrong side of the car for us. And that was his first time. So he also got an experience.
He did a great job.
Some of the roads
once he got the hang of it.
Yeah, he did a great job. Some of the roads have little curbs, and so you really have to be careful to not they're narrow, and you have to like stay in your lane. So, but he did a great job.
Yeah, that's where the long and winding road,
Yeah. The country roads, especially are pretty narrow, and then they do have like some major freeways that we also went on. But yeah, so the first day after we arrived, we went, got off the plane about, I don't know, 8. Well, probably, I think our flight was 8:30. Yeah, like 9. It was a quick flight, and then got a rental car, and then we went to Swords Castle, which is like like a castle complex, castle ruins in Dublin, and took a tour of that, and then had lunch there, and then we drove up. Or Bob led us. He surprised us.
He surprised us.
Wendy's husband.
Road trip.
Where we went to Newgrange, which is a huge passage tomb. It's that big white tomb you may have seen on the History Channel, or it's pretty well known. And I think at the I don't know if it's the winter and the summer solstice is where like the light shines through the doors on either end, I think. But it's a huge and there's some standing stones there. But we got there too late, around 2 PM, and we didn't realize we had to like buy tickets to take the tour online in advance. And so that was our first lesson. And so we just took pictures from the outside, and Wendy hugged this huge multi-100-year, it must have been 300-year-old tree. It was this huge trunk. She went up and hugged that. And we took pictures from the outside. But then we went to another passage tomb nearby called Dowth, Dowth. And then there's another one called Noth that I don't think we made it to that one, but Dowth was kind of pretty much like in a farmer's field with the big mounds, and the areas where the tombs were, they had like metal gates over the openings to the tombs,
like a grate.
Like a grate, and you could kind of look down into them. But we climbed on top of the tombs, on top of the big mound, and took 365 photos, or 360-degree photos is what I meant, of the surrounding beautiful countryside, and did some ceremonies, walked around the perimeter of it. So that was pretty awesome. And then from there, we continued our drive up to Belfast, and we stopped in a little village, I think, near the sea, or it had kind of a view of the sea. And we had English tea in the afternoon with the little sandwiches and the scones and everything. And so that was fun, and overlooking kind of the sea across the street. And then we drove through the Irish countryside, kind of did off-roading, and through the beautiful green hills and the stone walls and the sheep, and
stopped at the lake,
dotted with different lakes around. And so that was a beautiful drive, so it's nice having a rental car to be able to experience Ireland kind
Go
of
at our
off
own
the
pace.
beaten
Yeah,
track.
yeah.
Yeah. Then we made it to Belfast, and we spent 2 nights in Belfast. So the next day we went to the Titanic experience, since if you don't know, the Titanic was built in Belfast, and they have this huge experience, like a kind of like a going to the science museum or history museum, with all photos about the building and the launch of the Titanic from that location before it made its maiden voyage. So so Wendy, if you want to talk about some
Oh
of your
yeah.
emotional
So,
experiences, and Joan's as
and
well. Yeah.
Jones. Yeah. So first Joan had the experience where we ended up going through, and we were looking at how they built the ship. And so they have kind of like this little ride that you go through, and you could see like the people like would be inside like the steel cages of where they were hammering and riveting, these during the building, putting the metal together to support it. And Joan had this flashback experience where she saw herself as a child, and she was with other children, and she was inside the cage of those, these small workspaces that was like maybe a, like a 3x3 box. I mean, they were just these small areas, and she was remembering carrying the rivets up to the guys who were doing the actual, work on the ship up for the decks. So that was really an interesting experience. And then as we were leaving, it gets very sentimental, and kind of like honoring and respecting those that lost their lives. And so they have like this display with lights and everything. And then I felt like real somber. And then on the one wall they have like all the names of those people who who had passed during that event. And so I kind of remember like walking down the stairs and reading some of the names and looking for, different like family names and members, like, do I know anybody with like last names that like might be on the wall kind of thing. And so after I went past it, as you're exiting, the last part of where we were at, they talk about how, because of what happened, that they put in, new procedures and policies in place about, making sure that there's training about how to get off the boat, that there's enough life rafts for the boats, and, the warning signals and contact and all of this. And so as I'm going through, there's like maybe like 2 signs left, and I'm stopping and I'm reading each of the signs and, finding the different information about, what they were saying that changed in maritime law. And I get to the one that talks about making sure that they have communication available, that they could, reach out to somebody. And all of a sudden I just was like, just in tears, just standing there. Like I couldn't move. I was just standing there in tears. And I was like, oh my God, like what am I experiencing right now? But I got this overwhelming sense of, I couldn't get there in time. Like that's like what kept like coming up to me was I couldn't get there in time. I couldn't get there in time. Like we weren't given any notice. So that there were ships that were close enough that in retrospect, found out that they had enough time to get there, but because they didn't have any notice, that they didn't know, like they couldn't get there, but they could have done something. So it's kind of that regret. So that was an experience that I ended up having. And then we ended up going.
Well, I was going to say too, so like printed on the wall, they had the actual conversation of the distress call printed on the wall there, going back and forth. And one of the things that happened is that before it made its maiden voyage, one of the men that was like one of the lookout guys, that had the binoculars, he left the ship with the binoculars. So on this maiden voyage, they didn't even have binoculars to see the iceberg like they normally would have. And so that was part of the problem too. They were just using their regular eyesight. And then the short notice of getting calls out to the nearby ships, because it wasn't until they pretty much hit the iceberg or basically saw the iceberg and hit it, that they were able to get distress calls out, because they didn't have binoculars to kind of see it further in the distance too. So
wow, bad choices were made on that. And the captain was quite arrogant, like he didn't want to he didn't want to, take instruction, as from what I understood.
Yeah. And I think some of the boats were launched without people in them, or they didn't have guidelines about what to do in an emergency, so people were launching lifeboats with very little people. There wasn't enough lifeboats. Some were launched with no people in them, so there weren't any processes in place of how to deal with the situation. So
Yeah.
Whew.
So then they did have another ship that was on site that was one of the White Star ships of the day. So then we just kind of went over there and did a little tour inside the boat that we had, access to. It's like one of the last remaining boats that has not been destroyed.
Yeah, it was like a companion to the Titanic that brought the passengers to and from the mainland onto the ship. To load them onto the ship was they used a smaller boat to bring them out to the Titanic, I think. So
yeah. And then we ended up driving from there, from Belfast to the Londonderry area. And we ended up doing kind of we were outside all day. We were walking, we were exhausted. It was the heat of the day. We were going up and down stairs, and we ended up
that's when we went to Giant's Causeway.
And and then after Giant's Causeway, went to Carricker Reed Bridge. And it was a lot of hiking that day, but we were connecting in with the rocks, and again, just getting together and doing some clearing energy. But I feel like that day we were like apart and together. Like we just, we were being called to like different areas. So it's almost like we were spreading our energy. I don't know how to really explain that, but I didn't get my feet in the water there. I don't know if you or Joan did. It was pretty rocky.
No, it was too rocky, and like Carricker Reed Bridge had, steep cliffs and stuff. But yeah, so Giant's Causeway is like a rock formation, all these almost geometric shaped rocks jutting out. It's a UNESCO like heritage site, if you look it up, Giant's Causeway. And so it was like an 80-degree day. It was really hot, and and there was no shade. So we hiked down to where the shoreline was, where all these rock formations. It was caused by like a volcanic eruption, something like 60 million years ago, like a long time ago. But they thought that giants had made these strange rock formations that were kind of jutted up out of the ground. So it's fascinating. It's something I've never seen before. And then Wendy connected with her Earthsea dragon, Jade.
Yeah, Jade.
There.
So I kept hearing Jade of the Sea, Jade of the Sea. And I was like, who is Jade of the Sea? And why are you called Jade of the Sea? So, but that's when I first made the connection there. But then it kind of continued, like every time we were around that sea edge where, the cliffs and the water met, kind of that, I don't want to call it a violent force, but, it can be depending on how quick the waters are coming. And so that's where, she's kind of like this green and white dragon as far as like her scales go, but that's kind of like where her work is. Like her work is the energy of where the earth and the water meet. And so she's kind of like, like within the chaos, she helps to bring the calm. And apparently that was, energy that I needed to start to get prepared for, connect with. And so she's just helping me with that. But
then,
do
you want to talk?
Wait, but then we had ice cream. I mean, what's a trip without more ice cream? And then we ended up making an appointment for the Carricker Reed Bridge, and then we ended up going over there, drove there, and it was kind of like late afternoon, and it was a long hike through walking on the water's edge, and it's a nice path and a beautiful view, and we were taking photos, but the thing is that it was like steps down, and I was like, oh no, what goes down must come up. So I wasn't really excited about the trip back up, but but we all managed to make it with a rest here or there. But after you get down all these stairs, there's kind of like, there was a boathouse that was like down below that was like an old fisherman's, that's where they would fish from. But then there also is, between where this island is and where it ends off at the cliffs, there's like a in-between area, and then there's like another set of cliffs. So there's a rope bridge that goes across, and that's the Carrick-a-Reed rope bridge. And so we ended up going, and Bob got across first, and then I was going. Well, I didn't know that Joan had a fear of heights. And so we're walking, and I'm like, oh my God, this is fun. Like, I'm just bouncing like a kid. And then I'm hanging on, and
I was like, stop bouncing. Because it's like, 500 yards down, down to the sea, basically. Yeah, it was between the mainland and this island that jutted out of the sea where this rope bridge was. And going back like 300 years, the salmon fishermen and other fishermen would cross a more flimsy version of the rope bridge, like to get to that fishing shack, to do their fishing, and they would cross it every day. And so this was a more safe, secure bridge, but
yeah, it had steel wires.
Yeah,
I knew it was safe.
But the gap between where this little island juts out of the sea and the mainland, because it was like steep cliffs, on the side of this island and the mainland, between it where the rope bridge went over, there was a dormant volcano. So that created the split, I think, between the mainland and this rock formation. But it was absolutely gorgeous, like turquoise water, white cliffs, white and black cliffs down to the sea, and then turquoise water and green grass, blue sky. That was I think one of our favorite places. Yeah.
Yeah, it totally was. And actually, once we got over there, there's like this patch of green grass. It's just like on the top, it's just like mowed. I can't even explain it. And so there were people already like sitting and laying in the grass, and we just felt that same calling to just like take our shoes off and just lay down on our backs and look at the sky. So
and the sea in front of us. Yeah.
It was just spiritually, I think we just really had a connection of like, this is amazing land and an amazing place to be, and everything is fine and dandy in the world. So
yeah.
And I know there was like a little bit of area that you could explore. I didn't even walk to the edge to like look like, how steep is it? I mean, I just like literally went to the grass, took off my shoes and laid down.
You sounds like you're tired and you needed to lay down, I think.
I guess.
Yeah.
Needed to recoup.
Yeah.
Did you explore any of the Celtic or Druid areas, or, did you look into any of that history when you were there?
Yeah, so as a matter of fact, one of the mounds that we were at when we ended up going to the Hills of Tara, but that's a little further in the story, they had like some writings in the wall, and I actually got this when we were there, and it had like the little Celtic symbols.
Oh, hold it still.
So
you hold it still in front of your camera. So the camera can focus. Don't shake it because people can't see it.
Let me see if I can get it to hold still.
Okay. You've got to hold still, hon. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, cool. Yeah. So just to jump ahead, because we're going to run out of time, but so you had experiences with or what was that?
Well, yeah, I mean, the next thing that ended up happening was when we went to we were crossing we'll skip past being at the Brown Trout Inn, and then just our trip over to Dublin, because then that's where kind of like the last couple of things that happened.
Well, also, let me just mention in Belfast, Joan Goffstein and I were roommates, and there was one night when we got back from the Titanic experience after dinner, I wasn't feeling good. So I stayed in bed and went to sleep while they went to like the rooftop bar to check it out and stuff. And then so Wendy and Joan came back about 11:30 at night. And then I woke up when they came back, and they were sitting at a table talking. And then about at 12:30, I went back to sleep. And then I woke up at like 2 a.m. I think like a call came into my phone and maybe lit it up, like a spam call from the US. And I have it on mute. But I think that's what woke me up at 2 a.m. exactly. And so I went to go to the facilities, and I was walking by Joan's bed, which is right across from the bathroom, and it looked to me, it looked perfectly made with the like decorative pillows, and like she hadn't gone to bed yet. I'm like, well, where's Joan and Wendy? Where did they go? Are they down the lobby? Or I didn't know. So I went back to bed, and then the next morning I was talking to them, and Joan's like, I was asleep in bed at that time. Like Wendy had left around 1 o'clock, and so I don't know if I had like a timeline shift, or I thought maybe she, because Joan has very vivid dreams of going on ship in astral, or she remembers a lot of things. So I was like, well, did they take her on ship or what happened there? So I said, yeah. So I don't know if I just was shifting to another dimension and didn't see her, or what happened there. So that was unusual. And then, yeah, we made our way. We went to Donegal Castle. I think did some clearing there in Donegal, and yeah, stayed at this country inn. It was like a golf and country inn, and we stayed at a traditional Irish cottage that was beautiful, backing up to this golf course. And we were only there for one night, but we could have stayed there a lot longer. And then we, yeah, so that's along the northern coast. And then we made our way south towards Dublin, and we stopped at the Hill of Tara, which is another ancient burial mounds, ceremonial site for the High Kings of Ireland. It was like an inauguration site where they were inaugurated, and it was also the seat of the High Kings of Ireland. But there's a major passage tomb. And it wasn't until I really read up about it later, but we were laying on top of this passage tomb.
This is funny.
And it's called the Mound of the Hostages is what they call this passage tomb. But I found out that there was like, hundreds of people buried there. Wow. Most was cremated bones, but they did find, I think, some skeletons. But it was one of the first things when you come into this. It's like a big grassy field area where these mounds are, and we went on top of the mound, and we brought out our crystal skulls, and Wendy brought out her flute, and we were doing light language and kind of doing our little ceremony, just laying on top of this mound. We didn't realize that was the main passage tomb that we were laying on until later. And then, yeah, there's a graveyard and church there. And then we did some ceremony with the nature beings, sharing crystals and sharing apples that we gifted to them. And then on top of the main Hill of Tara, there is like a stone, like a standing stone there, and it's called the Stone of Destiny, or Leah Fail is the name. And Wendy felt connected to it and was, where you're putting your forehead against it and connecting with it.
It was almost like I was like trying to get a third eye reading or something. I don't know. I just was how I felt to do. And another one of those where, it wasn't a tree I was hugging a stone. And I just think that there was a lot of energy there to be cleared, and that Stone of Destiny maybe had a lot of ceremonies over the years. And so I just was feeling the energy of it. And so that's how that was. But then later, after we kind of took a walk and did some light language more toward the pastures, down like toward the long end of this
like
horizon,
where the hill kind of goes down.
Yeah. And so we kind of like got to the very edge, and then we were like, okay, well, let's turn back, because then it started being like somebody's farm, off in the distance. So we did some light language, and we did some donations on the way. Well, then Susan's like, all right, well, I'm going to go ahead and start heading back. And Joan and I were like, well, we want to go walk over here. And so we ended up walking down the side of this mound. And then Susan said, we just ended up out of sight. She's like, I don't even know where you guys went. and so then we ended up down by, there's this tree that's kind of down and further, like when you're looking out off to the right. And we got out there, and it had like all these like prayer cloths and stuff that were there. And I was like, oh, it goes, this is like a prayer tree. And so I said, well, let's go ahead and put our crystals in here, and like we'll add our own prayers, and we'll do like some clearing and light language. So we both did. Well, as I reached in to set my crystal down, I had my left arm, and I was like reaching inside, like I kind of wanted it in the branches of the tree. There was like this little crook, and I had a larger crystal, and I kind of wanted it like in the tree. And so I was like reaching in, and as I got scratched on my arm on the way out, and I was like, ow. And then Joan was putting some crystals in, and then she got scratched like with her finger, and she was like, ow. So we both like got these scratches. And then it couldn't have been like much longer after I was walking away. I was having like all this like weird vibration, like somebody was taking and shaking my arm, like right along where I was scratched. And she said her fingers where she got scratched, she said it keeps feeling like a magnet, like they're like being like stuck together. And she goes, and they're vibrating weird. So then afterwards we were trying to find out like what was that energy. And I guess we picked up some ancient portals, and they're for us to be able to use for our interdimensional travel. So that's kind of how it was explained, but I don't know. I haven't really investigated more into that to find out like, what does that mean exactly? Maybe it's just making it easier to connect with ancestrals for healing or something.
Yeah,
But then after,
did you ever sit, I mean, did you sit and meditate on the land and really try to take in the energy, or was it that you were mostly having to move around because you were
no,
tourist?
those times when we were, anytime we were stopped, I mean, we were sitting around connecting in, because, you know, we'd have a whole day trip and it'd be like, you know, we'd be in one or two places. And so even though it seemed like we were going a lot of places, whenever we were stopping and doing light language, I mean, we were sitting and connecting in with the energy. And when we were actually the place that we went for tea, we were at the beach edge, and, you know, sat down and did a meditation and did some videos and some light language. They're on my phone or something. I don't know. We'll have to find those. I'll have to be shared out the road, I guess. But yeah, definitely all along the way we were, you know, making our connections in. I think the last thing, we were en route, we needed to get gas. There wasn't like a place to go pay, and you needed to have a cash card, like their card. We were trying to use our credit cards. We couldn't. It just happened. There's like a little roadside place for an eatery. And we're like, yeah, like, we don't know what we're supposed to do. Like, we're sitting here, our car's like practically running on fumes, and we need to get gas. And above this little place is like this sign that says Angel. So I'm running around taking pictures of like, you know, this real estate sign that's got like Angel, and then it's got like a 911 or 411 or something like that. So the numbers are like in there. And I'm like, oh, Angel 411. Like in my mind, I was thinking, oh, Angel 411, you know? And so anyway, I was taking photos, and then come to find out that we couldn't get gas. Well, then somebody was over there like eating, you know, they just were like having a sandwich from this little like pull up, like
it was like a grandpa and a grandson, and then the grandson used his gas card, and we gave him cash or something, right?
Yeah. So he rescued us. So yeah, so that was interesting. And then finally, once we did get to Dublin, we
had a whole hotel mishap.
Yeah. So we ended up going to Dublin Castle.
Your guys' timeline is so messed up.
Oh, well, you should have written a timeline for us.
So, well, it was after the Hill of Terra. We arrived in Dublin.
Belfast.
Oh, Dublin and Belfast, not on the way back. Okay, I'm on the opposite end of that, needing gas, but I thought it was the other way around. Anyway, so yeah, so we ended up going to Dublin Castle, and then at the base of the stairs, I have a weird queasiness. Susan gets a weird queasiness.
Or should we take a step? Should we go in chronological order leading up to Dublin? So first was the leprechaun sighting that Joan had. So we arrived in Dublin. We stayed overnight, and about 4 or 5 in the morning, the next morning, Joan wakes up. You know, we're sharing a room, and so she wakes up, and I was on the left side, she was on the right, and on the left side of the room, like off the end of my bed, basically, was this tall shelving unit, and there was like a extra blanket, extra pillow up there at the top, and she saw 4 leprechauns in the shadows of the room moving on top of like the pillow on top of the shelving unit, and they were just like watching us sleep. And so she just sat in bed and was like, am I seeing what I'm seeing? You know, but she was able to describe, you know, their face had kind of like that pointed chin that you think of leprechauns have. And they had a hat, kind of like gnomes do. And they had similar, I think, clothing to gnomes as well. But she saw them moving and watching us, and for, I don't know how long, but yeah, so that, there was that sighting of the leprechauns. And later we were told, like, you know, the nature beings were like with us on the whole trip. It was like but she had a lifetime as a leprechaun. which I think is why they appeared to her, and she had that connection. So, and she's more like, I see visions with my eyes closed, but she's more clairvoyant, where she sees things with her eyes open more. So there was that. And then, we went down to breakfast, met up with Wendy and Bob. And then after breakfast, we went back up to our rooms and to take a nap. Because we weren't going to go to, so we ordered we ordered our reservations online to tour Dublin Castle for like 1:30. So we're going to meet down in the lobby around 12:45, and then the taxi would pick us up at 1 that we had reserved. And so we were like, well, we have time to take a nap. We were all tired. So then Wendy had her experience. So you can share that with your dream.
We're taking a nap, and all of a sudden I'm woken up from my nap. My husband's shaking me, going, okay, it's time to go. And I go, all right, it's only going to take me like 5 minutes and I'll be ready to like walk out the door. So I'm standing there, and I get my my pack that I'm carrying, and I'm like standing in the doorway, like in that little hallway to like go out the room. And then I'm like, well, where'd he go? And I'm like, well, Bob, what are you doing? So I walk around, and he's like standing in the bathroom. And this is actually the layout of the room that we're in. He's standing in the bathroom, but he's standing there in a towel. And I go, what are you doing? He goes, oh, I'm going to get a shower. And I go, are you kidding me? And I go, well, why did you wake me up so early when like I could have still been napping? And so I go, fine, go take your shower. And so I push him on his back. And then I was like, oh, I go, is it raining? So I go and I walk up to the window. So walk past the end of my bed, and I'm like looking out the window, and I'm like, wow, it was like pouring. Like the rain is just coming down really super heavy. And it's just like almost like when it rains so hard, it like floods over the edge of your gutters, and it's just like, just really coming down. And so I was like, man, it is really raining. And so then I said to myself, well, I guess it's raining now. So I've been dragging my coat, my raincoat and my umbrella this whole trip, and I haven't even had to use it. So I was like, what's the point of bringing them? So I was like, well, I guess I get to use them. So I went and I got my coat, and I put my raincoat on, and I grabbed my umbrella. And I'm like standing there, and then I wake up. And I'm like, oh my God, like it took me a minute, and I'm like, okay, that was a dream. I just dreamt that. And what woke me up was they had scheduled at 12:30. They had this alarm scheduled to like test through the hotel.
Like a fire test alarm.
Like a fire drill alarm at 12:30. So, and then that's when I actually woke up. And so I was like, oh, wow, that was really weird. And then we go downstairs, and we're all standing there, and I'm looking outside, because then I went to the window. I'm like, well, is it raining? And I couldn't tell. And I looked down, and it looked like it was wet. And I was like, well, it kind of looks like it was raining. So, but anyway, I went down without my raincoat. And then I was like, we got down there, and then it started to rain. I was like, oh man, I have to go back
it just started lightly raining when we were waiting for the taxi.
So that was fun.
So Joan and Wendy had to run up and get their stuff. Yeah.
It was very real. And exactly. Yeah. I mean, the room was
like we're in like another dimensional space. I think that whole trip,
it seems like you were in like different like phased areas. Like you would go into a phased area. Bola has a question from the YouTube chat, which I think is a good question to ask. She says, what is different for you back home now since this trip?
Oh my gosh. What is really different is that I feel like any of the like spiritual abilities that I already have been more enhanced. Like they feel
amplified.
Stronger. Yeah, they do. They just feel really amplified.
Like telepathy, psychic abilities, channeling abilities are heightened.
To talk over each other, though.
Sorry.
Yeah, definitely the abilities are heightened. The telepathy for me, I've noticed, is like, I'm like, okay, I was just thinking that, or I was just thinking I'm getting ready to say that, and then that person would say like what I was just thinking that I should say that, or like that thing where you're like, oh, get out of my mind, because you're both saying the same thing at the same time. So that really has amplified for me. The channeling too, just like I don't know, I guess it's still telepathic, like hearing like what's being said. And it's not really, I say hearing, but it's not really like a sound it's not like you're talking like how we're talking now and you can hear me. But it's definitely like, oh, okay, I'm having a conversation with spirit right now. So maybe you've had that experience. But and also for me, I was getting energy shakes before we left. And so I think that had to do with like anchoring in the energy. And so my legs would spasm. And so both my legs would like jerk like that. And then once we got back, so all during the trip, I was like waking up, like my whole body was like vibrating, like I'd wake up physically shaking like this, like just shaking. And I was like, okay, like this is so crazy. And it was like really intense the whole trip, like all those 10 days. And then when I came back, it went away from being like physically like vibrating like this, shaking, to now I'm just like, instead of both my legs jerking and my body being like pulled, like it feels like you're getting pushed or pulled back, into when you're when I'm laying down. And then my leg will just like jerk, like it tends to be my left leg, but sometimes my right leg will like zap out and my left leg will be like jerking in the energy. So I'll be laying there and all of a sudden my whole body will be like, so that's, I mean, physically it's kind of, it's fun. It's funny. But each time I lay down or go to do a meditation, I get these jerks now. So yeah, don't really understand all that.
Have you tried grounding that energy a little bit?
Oh gosh, that's all I've been doing is grounding. And each time we're out here in by Lake Michigan, I've got my shoes off and I'm in the water and I'm connecting as much as I can. And of course, if we're at the beach or laying down and really trying to ground. So it hasn't changed yet. But I think it just has to do with the energies are just still coming in. I think it's going to probably be all summer and we'll just see when it starts to subside. It's been 3 months right now. So I'm still kind of waiting to see where that goes.
Since you got back?
Well, it started before we took the trip.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it started in May.
Okay. And what about you, Susan? What's different for you?
So when we went to Dublin Castle, we had, Wendy and I both felt at the foot of the stairs to go upstairs to the Hall of Justice. We felt kind of a sense of dread, like we didn't want to go up there. And then
I was going to ask you, did you have any kind of scary experience?
So, well, I had a huge
losing
purging of related to a past life there. So, which I found out more about later. But so Wendy and Joan went upstairs, and then I was kind of behind them. They had already gone up, and so I was at the bottom of the stairs, and then my stomach started to grumble. I'm like, and I felt this sense of like dread. I don't want to go up there, kind of thing. And so I quickly went upstairs, told them, hey, I'll be in the bathroom for a while. So I was in the bathroom for like 2 hours with the worst food poisoning I've ever had. And they went to the pharmacy, got me some stuff to help me. And so I was able to make it back to the hotel. This was like the day before we had to fly back. And yeah, so I basically spent the rest of the day in the hotel. But anyways, but it was like a huge purging. And I later, a few weeks after we had gotten back, I went to a psychic expo, and my friend who's a psychic medium was there, and I get a reading from her every year at this expo. And so she said that I had a past life as a very bad man, and like I even maybe sent people to their death that probably shouldn't have gone to their death. And so, but I didn't, in that lifetime, I didn't own up to what I did, right? So the Dublin Castle is the seat of the Irish government going back like 1,000 years. So there's a lot of history there, a lot of people that have been tried there, I think in the Hall of Justice up there. And so, yeah, so that experience was like kind of my soul fragments, or, all the energies that I didn't take into that lifetime or didn't own up to, like all came flooding back into me and like hit me in my solar plexus pretty much. And then it's like I reintegrated these parts of my soul from that lifetime, and then purged, kind of purged it out basically. And but there were some souls there that I did wrong to, I think, at the castle that didn't want me there. Like, oh no, here she comes. But I was a man in that lifetime. But not that but I later on I did send forgiveness or ask for their forgiveness, forgave myself, everything. But I did lose like 8 pounds coming after I got back from the trip. And so, but I felt a lot lighter energetically as well as physically. And since I've been back, and one thing that started was I started getting like in my what they call it, your angel chakra at the back of your neck, started vibrating into the left left side of my neck, head area started vibrating, and, you know, like all the time. And leading up to like Lionsgate was pretty intense. And yeah, I think Wendy was having a similar experience. And I figure it's just another, an area for channeling. And, but yeah, I noticed, like my, telepathy, psychic abilities, and channeling were all stronger. And it's like, now I feel like, I just get telepathic or channeled messages, whatever you might call it. Just, they just come in, and I start, like, I'll be speaking to somebody, and I'm like, am I channeling this right now? Cause that's, and I'm like, yeah. I'm like, it's, and I'm just integrated maybe more with my higher self too, or other aspects of myself, where it just, it's just like flowing. So, more heightened now than it was. And I feel like I'm like we've leveled up to a higher vibration. And, and I did find out later, like, I think that stabbing in my right foot. So, Philip Barrow, that was there, who's a healer. He, I went to one of his sessions afterwards, and he's like, you've got a implant in your right foot. And I don't think he knew or probably remembered that was the foot where I had that stabbing sensation. So he removed an implant there. And then I was still having intermittent pains in my lower back. Like we had more intense pains before we left our trip, Wendy and I, almost like sciatica radiating down your legs from your lower back. And I've heard that your chakras that are like in your back, the back side of your chakras relate to either past events from your current life or past lives that, like need to be cleared. And now I have none of that pain. Like it's completely gone since being back. But initially I had a little bit of that. And so Philip also does healing sessions, events with Deb and Rick Purcell. And so they did like a body scan too. And they saw that I had like a U-shaped implant in my lower back that kind of looked like one of those clips that you put on clothing, like security clips. And she's like, so Deb was like, I've never seen one of those before. And then I had a small like tracking device in my hand that connected to that lower back thing. So they cleared all of those like implants. And then, and she said it might take like 3 days or whatever, but now I have like none of that pain at all. And it was pretty painful and intense at different points, but it's completely gone now. So it's, that's pretty interesting.
I was going to say, so after that experience, we had made dinner plans at this restaurant where the night prior we had run into, and there was like Irish clogging and they were singing, but we just saw the clogging while we were there. But we're like, oh my gosh, like let's have dinner here tomorrow. And I mean, it was packed. There were people standing around in between the tables and everything. And I was like, man, this place is packed. It's going to be crazy tomorrow. So then we ended up going and making reservations, and we went to have to eat the next day. And when we got in there, it was like, I mean, it wasn't like we were the only people in there, but it was like, it still had a really awesome vibe. And then they did the dancing, and then we listened
live
to
music,
them playing, live music, and they were singing. And so Joan and I were sitting next to each other. There was a part during the evening we were having conversation, and I think we had already finished eating. And then I was turning, looking to her, and then all of a sudden, boom, this aura shows up over her head. Like, it's just like bright. It's so bright. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. That was really cool. But I didn't like go, Joan, I see your aura, but I just was observing it. And so I was like, oh, wow, like that was really awesome. So then later they were singing Country Roads. And so we're like standing up singing at the top of our lungs, Country Roads. And then the next day, as we were leaving, we had our suitcases and everything. So anyway, we had a wonderful night, dancing, singing, right? Minus Susan, which we were sad to miss her. She was supposed to be there.
I was sleeping in bed that night.
She was sleeping it off. But we ended up the next day, as we were going to the airport, there were some like problems with like our flights, and like because we ended up getting delayed, then their connecting flights were delayed. So they
it was delayed like 2 hours.
So but ironically, like everything ended up working out like fine for them. But Susan was like at the counter and having a conversation. Bob was over there standing. They were trying to like figure out like the flight arrangements or whatever. And so Joan and I were kind of like, we were already ready to go, had our luggage checked, and we were just kind of waiting. So we're just like standing having a conversation. Well, all of a sudden I see this image in front of her, like she's talking, but then I see this face in front of her also facing me talking at the same time. So she's saying, so it's almost like like a line hologram, like an invisible man kind of thing. So I could see her talking and I could see this other face talking at the same time. So she would talk and it would talk, but it was like literally like right in front of her face, but it was like further away, like maybe I would say like 2 inches away from her face. And I kept like going in my own mind, like I didn't say anything to her, like, I'm seeing something on you. But I just like listened to the conversation and we were laughing, and I was just like, I made like a note of it to myself about, wow, that was like what am I seeing? But it's not been my first experience of like seeing like multidimensional beings at the same time. And so that's what I was experiencing. And then, then we were doing channeling and stuff and asking later, like, what was that I was looking at? And it was her leprechaun self showing itself to me that, hey, see, we're like one and the same. Like here's her and here's me at the same time. So, so that was like a really cool experience to have.
That is cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing, like that morning when we were about to fly out, I think I read like saw a brochure or something about the Leprechaun Museum. And I think if we would have known that there was a Leprechaun Museum, because we were kind of debating about going to Dublin Castle, like we're like, like, should we look for something else to do, but we felt we ended up going there. But I think if we knew there was a Leprechaun Museum, we might have gone there instead. I kind of feel like the leprechauns were withholding the information because I needed to go to Dublin Castle and have this like karmic clearing that I experienced. But since then too, you've seen beings in your home, right? Too, if you want to share that.
Yeah. I've you'll just be walking and all of a sudden you'll see this person walk by. So I was sitting on my couch and watching TV, but sometimes it'll like hit a point and I'm like not really watching it. I'm just kind of like in my own little world and looking out the patio. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like looking out the patio. It's dark outside already, and then all of a sudden I see this guy walk like through like there's a sidewalk in my living room. He just like is walking. He doesn't like look over at me or anything, but he's just like walking, like he's walking down a city street. And he had on these, khaki pants and like a collared shirt. And I kind of remember going, what's that guy doing here? And then the other thing that's interesting is I've noticed that the plants are talking to me more. I've been having like a more solid connection with the plants. So I have this philodendron that's in my house. And I've noticed the last couple times that I've gone to water it, like I'll be sitting there, there's nothing happening. There's no reason, like it's just sitting there on the shelf. And all of a sudden, like 4 or 5 of the leaves will go like this.
Okay.
And I'm like, hello. So, and sometimes it's just kind of like, like, hey, we're sharing this space together. This is like an energetic share. And so I'm like, okay, I love you. I watered you today. So I don't know. It's that part is interesting, but yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting. When did they have those special trees there that I can't think of the names of? Were you able to see any of the beautiful, like the trees that have like the big extending roots and what are they called? Oh shoot! I mean,
there were huge guardian trees there, that must have been looked like 500 years old.
Rowan trees is what I'm talking about. The rowan trees.
Do you see what trees?
Rowan.
Hard to say. I mean, we literally were all across the landscape, but were we in an area that would have had those trees specifically? Unknown. I'd have to look at it later and maybe post a comment. Yes or no.
Yeah, they're native to Ireland and they're pretty special.
Yeah, I'll have to look up that I'm not familiar with that type of tree, but I know there was like a graveyard and a chapel next to the Hill of Tara that had just these amazing ancient trees, that look like 500 years old, like trunks. I haven't seen trunks that wide anywhere, and there was like a whole grove of them around this cemetery area. So I went and we were gifting seed crystals as well as so I was going around gifting seed crystals to these different trees, and the trees were amazing there.
We also ended up, do you remember the wall when it was like the wall of troubles, and there was that church that we ended up going to that we couldn't go to again?
Another ancient ceremony site, or ancient cemetery, I mean.
Yep, ancient cemetery, and so we were doing blessings and clearings in there.
Yeah,
too.
it was next to Donegal Castle or Donegal Town, like this the ancient part of the town. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, with the stone wall
Mhm.
around that city.
Right, because during the troubles they had everything like blocked off, like us versus them, and so they actually have a mural that's all along where we ended up parking that talks about the troubles and different people's experiences in that. So it's interesting how they had us like doing a lot of unintentional clearing, just based off of like where we were at and what we ended up going to. So, but yeah. So I don't know if you guys want us to channel it all. It's
Well, I would. I mean,
for timing.
Yeah, we definitely do. If there's anything that you'd like to channel, that would be great, because we only have like half an hour now. So I wanted to, I was trying to move you along, but at the same time, the stories are interesting, so you don't want to rush through them. But was there anything you channeled there that you could channel here that you brought with you, or is there anything you feel inspired to channel based on your trip?
I know well, we channeled the leprechauns like after we returned, like in our channeling practice. I haven't posted that video yet, but I will soon. Yeah.
Well, you can connect with them first. I actually have, what's funny? We
have the same shirt on.
I knew
we didn't talk to each other about it, but
we didn't talk to each other, but I knew yesterday, and actually yesterday when I was packing the shirt, I said, like, that's not what I knew in my mind. And then last night I like set my clothes out and I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to put on. And then I was like, oh, I wanted to make sure I had my necklace, that had the symbols. And because I really felt connected to, the single spiral and then this one with the 3 spirals. And which I don't know, you called it what it is, but anyway, so and then I said to myself, I said, Susan's going to be wearing the same shirt. And then I saw her, I can't see it, but I know that that's what she's got on. And it's
I just spur of the moment selected it this morning. Yeah,
we bought it at the Hill of Tara, and Joan I think ended up getting the same shirt too. So we were all like just feeling that energy for it.
And there's like, so it's a picture of like a wise woman with wild hair, but I didn't notice until after we bought it that she has her arms around an Irish Terrier. And Wendy lost her dog Cosmo, an Irish Terrier, earlier this year, and so I was like, oh, we got the shirt that had an Irish Terrier on it. So, and I've done animal communication with Cosmo a couple times. I mean, before his passing, and that was beautiful.
And he was saying that he had gone because he needed to be with us on the trip when we went as a guardian, as a protector. And so we were kind of getting messages from him throughout. When we were sitting on the beach and doing our meditation, all of a sudden out of nowhere, this big black lab comes and he like stops right in front of the camera. And then I was like, just at the time, I was just kind of like quiet, silent, looking out at the water. But all of a sudden I see this dog like jump in front of the camera, and then he just stands there, and then he turns and looks at me and just kind of sits there for a little bit, like he's smiling at me, and then off he went. And I was like, oh my God, that is so crazy. I was like, that's Cosmo energy. Cosmo just drug him in front of me so I could just like make sure that I saw him and knew he was there. So yeah, that was kind of fun.
Okay, so as far as channeling, who wants to channel? I mean, we're gonna have to do it very quick now.
I'll let Susan go, and then if we have time for me, that's fine.
Okay, great.
All right.
If you're up.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Good morning to you, ladies and gents, for being here today with us. And we are enjoying your interactions with one another and sharing these wonderful stories that you shared with us in our homeland. And we thank you for traveling so far to be with us. But you do not need to travel so far. You can come and travel with us etherically and join with our energies anytime you wish. Just call upon us and we will bring our playful energies and to join with yours and uplift your mood and bring you out into nature. We will call to you to come out with us and play with us, have fun, be your childlike selves. And we don't necessarily wish to be called tricksters, but you could consider us to be that way. We do not wish to be disruptive in your lives, but to help shift your focus to more pleasant outcomes, pleasant endeavors, and to shift into our dimension, shift into where we are, and have more magical experiences. For you are able to create these experiences with us, and this is something that we wish to remind you of. So if there are any questions for us, we are here represented as a collective, the Leprechaun Collective, if you wish to call us that. But if there's another name that you could call us, would be we're thinking of a good name.
Well, we have a question.
Yes.
Wally wants to know, who are you? You are a collective, but you don't call yourselves leprechauns? What do you call yourselves?
We are the Tuatha De Dananns, that we are the children of Dana, or Danu, as you might know her, the Celtic goddess. So in ancient times, we were not such a diminutive species, that we were more of the human size. But when our homelands were invaded, that we were able to shift dimensions, to shift into the form that we are now. But we can appear larger or smaller, but most of the time you will see us between 1.5 to 3 feet on average, but we can also shrink even smaller if needed.
And so do you exist in a, actually, Sarah has a question. Go ahead, Sarah. Why don't you ask the question if you can unmute? That would be good.
Yes, good morning. Really, really enjoying this. Thank you so much, everyone. I just had a question because you mentioned the you don't want to be called trickster energies. So what do you think that we as a human collective can do to help clear that, so that there isn't such a misunderstanding about your beautiful, loving energy that's very playful and sweet, and to uplift us? And so what do you suggest? Thank you so much. Love you.
Think of us as magic manifestors is a good way to think of us, and that's just playful companions for you to connect with out in nature or within your homes. We can go wherever we wish to be with you. And yeah, anything that feels of a positive vibration when connecting to us, but when referring to us, would be acceptable. But yeah, there is some negative connotation with the thinking of us as tricksters, of negative beings, which we are not. We've had perhaps some interactions with humanity in the past that have brought about these negative labels for us, that we are tricksters, that humanity needs to protect themselves against us, when in fact, if we are respected, if we are honored in our dimension, that if we are given the respect that you would wish to receive yourselves, and perhaps we do appreciate the gifts of fruit, of nuts, of crystals, of shiny objects of any kind, that we enjoy all of these things that are gifted to us as a gateway, if you will, into having interactions with us, that this is a show of honor and respect. And so we do respond favorably in helping with things in your life, such as things you wish to manifest, things or problems that you are experiencing that you wish to have cleared or need assistance with, fixing mechanical objects or computers, cars, anything electronics of other kinds that you might be having issues with, that you can call on us to help us to shift the energies in a more positive direction. And so yes, you can create an altar similar to what these ones have created for the leprechauns, the gnomes, and other nature beings, where you leave gifts of even like pennies, nickels, dimes, metal objects such as that are valuable to us, or of food and shiny objects and crystals, things like that. Like whatever you think that you can also ask us telepathically what we would like to receive from you, or if you have something that you wish to gift to us, you can ask us and see if you get a yes from us, if that is something that we would like to receive. That these are ways to connect with us, that if you just like as you give, you shall receive, is, I believe, a saying that you have, that it is a flow of energy, is a flow of giving and receiving, that we wish to have in our exchanges with one another. And so this is just one way of gifting different objects, different energies, things like that. Giving healing intentions for the land, for Gaia, for our environments, and visualizing what you wish to create in the new earth is also beneficial. And how, envisioning your, living in peace and harmony and one with us in the world that you wish to create for yourselves, and with all the nature people, that we all wish to have a harmonious connection. And as humanity has been raising its vibration in more recent times, that we are, in a sense, coming out of the shadows, coming out of the woodwork, to connect with humanity more, to make our presence known more, because we wish to, as you rise into a higher consciousness level, to build our relationship once more in your awakened state. We also connect with you while you are asleep, and you may not always remember this, but call upon us whenever you wish to make these interactions more real for you, more tangible in your reality.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Because of time, either we switch to Wendy and take one question, or we stay with this energy. And
it's okay. I think it's okay to stay with this energy. It's fine.
All right. So as you were talking, I was getting this sort of, and maybe you can comment if you're society, which I believe is quite large and quite developed, there's also a part of society that quite doesn't like humans and doesn't feel that any need to connect with them. They aren't there for just to call on them and do our bidding and our requests. And, they have their own lives and they're living their own thing, and they pretty much prefer to be left alone. So as much as you were talking about all of the wonderful things that we can do to connect, I was also hearing maybe a brother or a cousin of you saying, just mind your own business, and you're better off sticking to yourself, and we'll do the same.
Yes.
So I don't know if you could comment on that part of your society, but it was
Yes.
yeah.
So the name that I wish to give that you can connect with me on is Ekorn, Ekorn, like acorn, but Ekorn. And I am, I guess, in your mindset, a more youthful leprechaun, more, I guess you'd say, a young adult. But it is true, there are some of our race that wish to be left alone, wish to not interact with humanity due to perhaps other negative experiences they may have experienced with disruptions to the land, to their environment, to also the rivers, in our areas, different bodies of water as well, and the land clearing, cutting down the tree people, which we do not appreciate so much. But you can call upon me as sort of a ambassador for those that do wish to connect. That the collective that I am a part of are those that wish to create a more beneficial, harmonious relationship with humanity, once again, upon the planet, in a higher vibrational state. As you ascend to the fourth and fifth dimension, we are mainly in the fourth up to the fifth, but as long as you have an open heart and a loving vibration, and you extend that love or project that love outwards to us, and in an invitation to our connection, that we will respond, or those of us that wish to have that connection with you will respond to build a bridge of communication between us. So those that do not wish to connect will just simply choose not to, if they are not ready to. Just like humanity or different members of your species still have the need to clear old energies. That in some cases is it true with us as well. So there are some that need to clear out some of those old energies from the past, or what you perceive as the past, and to open up to this type of communication that they may not be ready for right now. But so it is not something to be concerned with, that those that are ready to connect from our group will connect with you, and it will all be positive.
Okay, Metawali asks, are you the shining ones? And do you wear a red cape and live underground?
Some members of our race are considered the shining ones. They are the ancient ones, the elders from our race, that yes, they have their own space, their own environment where they reside, yes, as part of the inner earth.
Okay.
They do wear capes, not only red, but there are other colors of capes based on their various stations or abilities, talents that they wish to share. That yes, they are the leaders of ceremonies. So when we do have ceremonies in association with different astrological cycles, natural cycles, like the solstices, for example, that's this is mainly when we connect with them, but it is usually on special occasions when they will come out of their residing areas to lead these ceremonies for our, I guess, larger collective, our larger a gathering of clans, if you will. So, but yes, they are part of our species, but they are a highly respected, honored group of elders, of ancient ones. And they, yes, they normally aren't walking about as part of our society per se, but usually on special occasions, they will come to the surface to join with us, to connect with the sun and the earth and the other nature beings on the surface, is more when we interact with them.
Okay, and so with you have also fairies, but are you interacting with fairies, or are they having their own society and separately existing?
Yes, the fairies have also their own society, their own traditions, but we do, you know, they do reside, how do we say, we all reside in our own areas. You know, the brownies, the gnomes, leprechauns, fairies, we all have our own so-called work to do, our own activities, our own villages, if you wish to call them that, within nature, but that we do come together for celebrations. We do interact, we do trade, what we produce from our special gifts, that there is a sense of trade, of interaction between villages, between species, that we do, I would say mostly, you know, live in harmony with one another, that if one is traveling from one place to another and they come across a village of another species, that we do trade. They usually bring gifts for those that they encounter upon their travels, and then we also honor them with a place to stay and sustenance, and we do celebrate with one another, both within, you know, within our villages, and also in these more significant astrological or natural cycles, to honor Gaia, to honor Creator, and all the blessings that we receive at all times. That we feel very blessed and very joyful, of all of the abundance that Gaia and Creator have given us.
So on you're in a different, are you in a phase to sort of, you're in a different dimension than humans, is that correct?
Well, we are mainly in the fourth dimension. We do have the ability to connect with the third dimension or up to the fifth, similar to many of you that are raising your consciousness into the fourth and fifth dimensions, that it is a bit easier for us to connect with you when your consciousness is raised to more of our level. But there are multiple layers within the fourth dimension, for example, where different fae can reside. So, but because we are multi-dimensional beings such as you, that we are able to shift at will, in our awareness, to connect with humans that are perhaps still more in the third dimension or higher levels of the third dimension, as well as up to the fifth. So, so some of us are able to, or some humans are able to see us in a more physical form, that when, you know, some have seen the pixies, for example, as well. We didn't mention them before. They are very they're a bit smaller than us, that they live in the woodlands and the caves, that some have encountered them there. But yeah, so we all have our various areas we like to call home. And but we also like to travel and interact with other areas, other species. But yeah, so some people may see us as, you know, a flash of light or a shadow out of the corner of their eye. That's one way some may experience us. Some may actually have a full physical form that they see of us. And it's all based on, I guess, based on who we wish to connect with, and if they are prepared to see us and open to seeing us and connect. And yeah, so there's various ways that we can make ourselves known based on the circumstance.
Well, perfect. We've reached, that's a beautiful answer. We've reached the end of our time. I have some more questions, but I guess I'll have to save them for another.
Yes,
But
we can come back again,
that would be-
and if
Yeah.
you wish, at
Yeah.
another time.
I think it would be great if you all came back and then we just focus, now that we have the story, we would focus on strictly channeling dragon and channeling the earth spirits would be a really
Yes.
good thing to do. Okay, but thank you, dear Leprechaun.
Thank you.
What is your name? Because
It is Ecorn, Ekorn.
Thank you, Ecorn. Thank you.
I will go now with the blessing.
Thank you. If you can leave us with blessing, that would be a great way to end the
Yes.
webinar.
Te siki kia sukotoa e se kuhua e ti hia hiki a hia koa sike te ia tuto ia ti hia sia ke ia tu kia hia si ko tuko te ia ti hia si tuko. We shower our blessings upon you. Sika ia ti kuhua ia ti hia si ki tuko ta ia. May the sun shine upon you all of your days. Sia iki tuto ha sia ki ke o sika ia dai tuko tu te ia si tika tuto te ia ko hazi ki ai tu ki ai siki he zia kutu ya hi siki at kutu ya hi he zia kutu ya yatsa ya tika ya tutia ku he zia ya ki ai siki ti ai ki kutu ta ai ti he zia kutu ya hi siki at ku. Feel the breezes through the trees sika ki kutu ya hi he zia ku. Let the grass people talk to you sikuto ya ki tika tutu ya ti hazi ki ai kutu ya si ki ai tiki. Here, see, feel the magic we give to you now. See, I kuto ya isi ka iti te aya tu. Here, see, I ki tu kuti express your magic. Feel it. Shower it upon everyone around you. Sikia titi ai, kia zi fukuya ti as the great creators you are. Si ai kia, ia si kia tukutu ya ki titi ya ki hosia kia te ya tukutu ya hi ti ya te. Send your love to Gaia and one another. Blessings to you.
Thank you so much. And if you can give us our Susan back, we would be very
Come back.
yeah.
Oh, that was fun. That was
Yeah,
joyous.
perfect.
Such beautiful
So I think
energy.
it's a good idea because we really ran out of time to be able to really get into any in-depth channeling, which we had in depth, but very short in depth. So we'll make a new appointment to have you back and to do, you know, maybe like a half and half like we did before, which is maybe a
Yep.
good thing
That
to do.
sounds
Yeah.
good.
All right.
Yeah,
So thank
definitely.
you, everybody. And thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Susan. Thank you for everyone in the chat, everyone in the YouTube. It was a very interesting conversation. We all got to go with you to Ireland and Scotland and eat ice cream.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. And eat ice cream, the most important part.
You know,
Thank you for having us. We had a beautiful
traditional
time.
Irish and Scottish food. You didn't mention that, but did you eat it?
We didn't
No,
eat
we
haggis.
passed on haggis.
No haggis. But I did try they have white and black pudding for breakfast in
Oh.
Ireland.
Wow.
And I just tried the
Right.
white pudding, which is like half like steel cut oats with I think lard, and I'm not sure if there's actual meat in there, but they're like, it kind of like, they look like a little patty. And so I tried that. Hopefully that's not what made me part of what made me sick. No, I don't think that was what made me sick, but
Might have been, you never know. But it's probably more the purging that was.
but we did have like a chowder called what was it? It was something skink. Something
Yeah,
it was like
right?
it was like a fish chowder. It was
No, I
like
think it was like a skink.
something
It's
skink.
kinda
Yeah, it was
sh-
something
yeah.
skink, like a white
Is it good?
fish. Yeah, it was really good, like a fish chowder.
You
It
know,
was
my
very
friend
yummy.
actually is over there. He's in Edinburgh right now, and he just put that chowder on his Facebook page, talking about it was the
Oh,
best. He said it was a combination of a couple fishes, and he's like
Mhm.
going to make it.
yeah, it's like a creamy chowder with like leeks and
Yeah, it was
some other stuff
delicious.
in there, vegetables in there. Yeah.
That's good. All right. Well, I wish you guys a fantastic rest of your weekend. Next week we have Jim. And so we'll be back with that. And there were some questions in the chat initially for Jim about med beds and things like that. So we can take those next week, but we'll talk after or in a couple days, and we'll make a new time to do the proper ecorn and maybe some dragon channeling coming up. So thank you very much for sharing your experience, and much love to you and much love to everyone. We'll see you,
Much
next time.
love.
Yes.